Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast by Closers.io where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jet Boardman, and in each episode, we'll uncover the stories behind successful startups, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future expansion. Today, we're excited to have Nick, the founder of Optics In LLC, joining us. Nick will be sharing more about his founding story, giving us a glimpse into his plans for future growth. So let's jump right in. Nick, welcome to Founders Future.
Howdy, Jack. Good morning.
Good morning. We're happy to have you here, man. So let's just go straight back to the beginning. Can you
Yeah.
take us back to what specific problem inspired you to start Optics In LLC?
What specific problem? Yeah, my own personal problem. So I've been a W-2 I was a W-2 for years, we'll say 20 years. And the second to last company that I was working for, I helped grow that company from 85 million to 185 million visits a year. And over a 6-year period, the headcount grew from about 7 to 40. And I really didn't know what I wanted to do from there. I was as an SEO guy, that was a big accomplishment. And so I didn't really want to go to the Bay Area, and so found another, or eBay or someone like that would have been. So I found a local startup here in San Diego, and I started working there and as the CEO running the business. And I realized that I didn't want to do that. And as fate would have it, it was a CBD company and an affiliate, a CBD
Mhm.
affiliate company. And for folks not familiar with the space, CBD wasn't necessarily federally legal until the Farm Bill passed, and I think it was December 2018 or January 2019. I forget exactly when it was, but there was a line in the sand around companies operating legally or illegally. And this company had been around before the Farm Bill passed, right?
Mm.
So fast forward about 5 months later, and Google comes out with this algorithm change. And everyone who was ranking the day before, folks who were operating, quote unquote, I would classify as the black market, went missing. They just disappeared largely. Bottom of page one, page two, page three, whatever it is. And all these new websites are now ranking on page one for best CBD, what is CBD for you, all those types of queries. And I realized that anyone who was operating illegally just got searched and replaced by the algorithm with
Mm.
quote unquote legitimate players, right? Folks who are on the up and up, they waited for the farm bill to pass. So now they're operating legally. And so I had to make a decision. What am I going to do? And then I did the math and I figured at this rate, I was going to fire the young lady who I brought in October, November, and then I was going to fire myself the week after. Right. And so what do I
Right.
do? Do I look for a job or do I open up my own thing? And I always wanted to do my own thing. So my business plan, and I do not recommend this for anyone because I can guarantee you will not read this in Harvard Business Review at all, was my business plan was I'm going to make it work. That was really the begin and end of it. And I remember telling my wife that. And in reflection, I think, man, I'm so glad she didn't say, so walk me through, what does that mean? Give me your 30, 60, 90-day plan, right? This is something typical you get at a W-2 when you first join the company. Because I really didn't have anything. I didn't have anything other than I'm going to make it work. And luck, fate, pick the word of the day. I gave my employer 4 weeks notice, 5 weeks notice because I can't read a calendar apparently. And when I started September, I think it was September 6th, 2019, and I walked into 60-hour work weeks for the next 3 or 4 months, all paid time, all paid, billable hours. And when I gave notice, I didn't have one statement of work. I didn't have one contract, but I was getting these signals that were like, you should start your own business, go do it. And that was the start of it all. And five years later, I'm still doing it, still
Still doing
doing it.
well. Walk us through your offer evolution. You started it 2019. How has what you sell and really what you do changed over the years?
Yeah, that's great. A lot of it's the same, and also new things, right? So it's a combination of the two. So I started with giving folks SEO audits, technical audits, and creating a roadmap.
Mm.
That was really the basics of it all. And then that turned into content creation for folks because it was like your site is banged up. Here's the recommendations to fix it technically. Also, you need new content. Go make some content. Here's some recommendations. But then people would say, can you make the content? All right, let's start making the content for you. So we started to make the content for folks. And then we got into backlinks because there's a trifecta here. It's really a 3+1 setup in terms of SEO. It's the technical, how can Google effectively crawl and index your website? If they can, what is on your website, aka on page? And then the third wheel of that trifecta is what are other people on other websites saying about you, otherwise known as backlinks, a link not from your site linking to your site.
Right.
And if you're a local business, if you have a brick and mortar, then we get into a local play. So that's a 3+1 setup. So we went from SEO audits to building content to links to local, and all those things are now offered as projects or 6-month retainers. So that was the evolution. Every once in a while, because we got to a point where working with larger companies, it was apparent that while their SEO was lacking, shall we say, that the reason why it was lacking wasn't necessarily because of the levers that were pulled or weren't pulled. That's certainly part of it, but that's really mechanical, right? So it's how do we get here? How do we get to this place where the lever wasn't pulled? And that gets into an operational conversation. So we do some amount of coaching. I do some coaching with folks around where they are in the company, how they're operating in the role. If they're going from a individual contributor to a manager's role, what does that look like? To build the skills to do that, and working with folks around general operations using a RASI model, a responsibility matrix, which is basically who's accountable for what and how does how do we get the work done, and how do we make that work visible?
Got it. Got it. Okay. So it sounds like it's been more so an evolution of you've uncovered more and more problems the more you've worked with people.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I started with the seed of what I was doing in my W-2s, technical SEO. And then all the things I was doing in my W-2s, I started to bring over into the universe of Optics In, which included RASI, which included that coaching, because I had a team and it was like making people successful. The philosophy was you give them everything they need to be successful, right? Because it's on me as the guy who brought them in and get them trained up, whether it's me or someone else doing it.
Right.
And then once you do that, then it's up to the individual to be successful. But you can't hold that individual accountable for something they did or didn't do if you don't have a process, if they weren't trained well. So you can always blame random name Jimmy because Jimmy screwed it up. But if there's no process to follow, it's not Jimmy's fault. Well, why does everyone else have a right? Because they were ingrained slowly into the process. They got to work. They developed their own process through emails, through Slack, through whatever it is we're using. But the new kid who comes in, he's a little lost. So what are your SOPs? What are your standard operating procedures? How do you onboard someone? How do you
Mhm.
set them up to be successful? And that's how you scale the company.
It's interesting you bring that up. We talked about books off recording right before we
Yeah,
jumped
yeah.
on, but sounds a lot like extreme ownership, right? If you've watched or if you've read that book, the whole concept is it's your job to make sure everyone knows what they're doing. And that's a lot like what you're talking about.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the book, but yeah, it sounds pretty identical.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're into it's a little more military based. If you're into military based books, then it's a good one.
Yeah.
But on that track, many founders face a moment where they almost gave up. Did you have one and how did you push through it?
Did I have one? There's there's a video by Dak Shepard, and he's an actor. He was being interviewed by I forget the name of the show, but he's talking about addiction, and he's talking about this weekend that he bought a ton of pills, and he blacked out. Like a day and a half, he blacked out. He just
Jeez.
misses a day and a half, and you would think that would be the rock bottom. But as an addict, there's multiple rock bottoms. And sometimes people keep on rock bottoming until a bad situation, worse situation, or sometimes they bounce back from that rock bottom. So
Right.
so in terms of was there a situation, there's times where you're like, what am I doing? What am I doing? This is
Yeah.
hard. It's hard to run your own business. It's hard to be the one using the RASI model. You're accountable for everything. Everything. You're sweeping the floors, you're creating the SOWs, you're doing the work in one way or another, right? You're accountable for everything. So my first realization of that came in right before COVID hit, or as COVID hit. I had a client and they were paying me a lot of money, almost the amount that you get paid as a full-time employee, as a monthly retainer for 12 months. So I'm like,
Mhm.
man, my base for 12 months is covered. This is amazing. This is really working out. And then I think it was 5 months, 5 months later, they're like, yeah, we just don't want to do it anymore. We just decided we don't want to do it. And so sometimes people show up like that in
Yeah.
this case and around COVID. And I talked to a lawyer. So what was the legal recourse? Do they pay you for the things you did up to date? You did, right? They did. And the lawyer was like, go find other people who want to pay you for your work. But that was doing a budget, getting the spreadsheet out. It was going to be a really good year. And so in
Right.
terms of were there moments, that was certainly a moment of, oh shit, what do you do now? And so going
Right.
back to that pithy business plan, gonna make it work. That's where you start to see what do you actually want to create here.
You mentioned multiple rock bottoms. Do you feel like the rock bottom ever gets easier to pick yourself up from because you've done it enough times?
I think you develop skills so that there's less rock bottoms and there's faster bounce backs from them. Right. So you're always going to have tough times. So you're going to have good times. But what really matters, like it's really easy to have a good attitude in good times. What's
Hmm.
really hard is to have a good attitude and faith to get through it in the rougher times. And one of the lessons when I was at the CBD company is I was really sitting there going, why am I doing this? Why is this happening? And it occurred to me like this is a really big lesson in resilience. That's what this is right now. And I get to learn it on someone else's dime. So that's cool. And I was reminded of that 5 months in when the client was just like, just don't want to do it anymore. We
Yeah.
decided we don't want to.
Yeah. And it's crazy. It's crazy in business how a lot of it depends on another person. A lot of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So you better have multiple offerings. You better have multiple marketing channels. It's a stock portfolio. Like, how do you make money today? If it's one offer through one client, not great, right? If it's 100 offers through 100 clients, that's not great either. But to have a core group of offerings and be able to do it well and efficiently and get good results, because it's really like you're as good as your last campaign in many ways, right? You're as good as your last deliverable because that holds weight, that holds reputation, that
Right.
holds ability for someone to actually get it done on the client side and at some point get a result or not.
Talking about that, you mentioned multiple offerings, multiple clients, and all this stuff. What's one misconception people often have about your industry, specifically SEO, just running a digital agency that you'd like to address?
Running the digital, I've seen a lot of folks. Here's the problem with SEO is that there are no licenses,
Mhm.
certifications. There's no governing body for certifications. So anyone can, like, your doctor is licensed, your
Right.
lawyer is licensed.
Hopefully.
If they're not, get a new one. Your electrician is licensed. There's certifications for other types of work. None of that exists in SEO. So someone can wake up tomorrow and say, "Hi, my name is, and I'm an SEO," right? And they create a lot of noise and they create a lot of misconception. And right now, if you were to go to LinkedIn and find an SEO string, you're going to find a bunch of things about SEO dying and AI, and it's such a
Hmm.
mess, right? It's such a
Hmm.
mess. And the truth is, here's the definition of SEO. When someone does a query, however that query is done, before there was Google, there was Yahoo. Before there was Yahoo, there was Ask. Before there was Ask, there was name the thing, whatever, name the search engine. Now we have AI tools, AI engines. They're not necessarily retrieval, but they're doing some amount of retrieval, right? Because there's a database that they're digging into. So wherever anyone is submitting a query, that is where you can be found. And so that's the definition of SEO. So if you can see where your folks are, where your clients' folks are, it's the standard definition or the standard answer around he was a bank robber. He was like a Western bank robber. Why are you robbing the banks? Because that's where the money is. Go to where your people are querying for, searching for your products. And that is your definition of SEO. And so people can come out and go, they run around with their hair on fire. And so that's the challenge
Right.
from an agency owner's perspective is to go, there's a whole bunch of people running around with their hair on fire, and they should be because they don't know what they're doing.
Interesting. We're gonna talk about industry changing here in a little bit, so I want to hold on that because I got some thoughts and questions I want to ask you.
Oh, yeah.
Jumping into the business model and the challenges of your business. Can you walk us through how you generate revenue today? You mentioned you have multiple offers, multiple clients,
Hmm.
things like that. What is like the core offer for Optics and LLC?
Yeah. It's 6 month retainers because we need to address for folks who've never done SEO, it's really a foundational retainer. We're looking at technical, we're looking at content, we're looking at links. Those are the three things that really move the dial, right? So if your technical's all banged up, I don't care how much content you have. It's never going to get crawled and indexed. So we got to
Right.
fix that. Once your technical is good, we got to make sure that you are actually able to rank for something. So now what's on your site? What did you say about yourself? How did you say it? And what medium did you say it in? Right? Did you use the right language? Is it in a PDF or is it in a video? Like we got to figure that out. And then we need to see if you're competing with bigger brands that have been in the marketplace for years and years, they're going to have some amount of backlinks. And so now how much does that matter and how many do you have? Chances are not a lot. So now we're starting to build a good website with good content, which gives people a
Mm.
good reason to link to it. It all builds. It all builds. And so it's a little bit like if you went to a health coach and you're like, I feel awful. And they're like, tell me about your sleep, your eating, and your exercise habits, right? Not just all three. Why all three? Because they all matter, right? So we need to take a look at that website holistically and see what's going on there. So we work a lot with folks around those 6 month contracts because it takes all those facets. We want to hit all those facets to get the result that we're going for.
Got it. Okay. And so as you're generating out your offer and working like pricing structures, it just depend on what the client needs, it sounds like.
That's right. Yeah.
Very,
So we
very
have, we
simple.
have more robust ones for reasons, and we have lesser ones for reasons, depending on the level of issues, depending on the size of the company.
Okay. Okay. Cool. I mean, going down that rabbit hole, if you will, right? How do you acquire clients? You talked about how you're helping other people find their clients, right? The queries, people looking them up. How do you find your clients?
Yeah, yeah. It's at this point, it's basically three ways. One is the conversations like we're having today. People find you through a trusted source that way. It's in persons. You cannot devalue in person get to know yous. Business
Right.
owners like to do work with other business owners, right? You go to where those places are.
Right.
And the other thing is SEO. When you're searching for something and you keep seeing the same thing showing up repeatedly, whatever that is, an SEO service, a computer, whatever, an event, whatever, a favorite bag,
Right.
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what it is. It's always in your face. And so that becomes something that wasn't in your consideration set. Now it's in your consideration set.
So how do you cut through all the other SEO businesses though, right? You mentioned there's tons of them out there. Someone's just looking up SEO. How do you
Yeah.
cut through that?
Yeah, I've been doing this for more than a minute. So I've been doing this since 2003.
Yeah.
And since then, I have the experience to back up what I'm saying. So, other than the results working at a local publisher where we, with the help of a team, we increased traffic from 85 million to 185 million. I worked for brands like Esurance, worked for car insurance in New Jersey, right? These are competitive categories that I worked in. I got pretty good results there. Also co-authored a book in 2009 and taught at NYU in 2010. So you can certainly question like, but can you do the work? Well, sure. But also compare that to all the other things out there. I'd be happy to put my results and my experience up against anyone else's.
Okay. So there's a huge level of confidence as well, it sounds like.
I mean,
You know what you're doing, right? It's confidence, conviction, whatever you want to call it, but you know what you're doing.
when you do the work, right? And my hope when I get someone on a call for a discovery call, and that's how every engagement starts is with a discovery call. I have two goals. One, is SEO good for you, right? Do we have alignment there? And are we the right agency for you? We know that we do good work. So now the question is, are we a fit? And I hope so, but that's not always the case. And folks make their own decision, and then we go from there.
Got it. Talking about that, right? And you're talking about finding the fits, things like that. Being the owner, the founder of Optics, how involved are you in the sales process or the acquiring clients process right now? Are you on every client call? Do you bring every
I
client
am.
in? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what would you say is the biggest bottleneck to growth for you? Is it finding clients? Is it having more people to do sales? Is it fulfillment capacity?
Yeah. Yeah. We're a small operation, right? It's finding folks who can step into roles and start taking on that so that other folks, specifically me and the company, have more bandwidth to do the things that are beneficial for growth.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the challenge of a small business.
Just the
And
bandwidth.
yeah, 100%.
You say things that are beneficial for growth. Do you feel like it's more on the front end or back end of client facing?
Oh, that's good. It would be on the front end. It would be on the front end of it. Because at some point it's a volume game. It's a
Mhm.
volume and quality, but if there is no volume, then it's a volume problem, right?
Right.
Like we get referrals quite a bit because of the time spent doing the work we do and the network that we have. But for for exposure outside of that, that's where getting on podcasts, that's where getting in front of people, that's where SEO really helps.
Mhm.
And like any marketing channel or any promotions, it only helps so much. So the more you can do, the more visible you are, the more of a pipeline it just starts to naturally build.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Okay. I mean, if you had to identify, because you talked about like bandwidth, things like that, right? If you had to identify one thing that if you could wave a magic wand, it would fix where you're at right now and put your business on the right path, what would you do? You get to wave it, you get something. Would it be adding someone to the team to take bandwidth?
Yeah, that would be exactly what it is. It would be
Well,
having folks at directors level who can come in and start operating, running departments,
hmm,
and just creating a machine that is more efficient than what it is today.
interesting. Okay, so really, I don't want to say automate. I don't want to say like turning into an automation, but in a sense, you have a very clear process. It's a machine in one, out the other, just pumping through people.
Yeah, it's really a growth model, right? It's get the right people in the right places to do the right work so you can focus on the 80% of work or the 20% of work that gets 80% of the efforts. And if you can continue to do that, then you can build a bigger machine.
Got it. Got it. So with talking about building a bigger machine, what are your top priorities for growing Optics and LLC over the next 6 to 12 months?
Now it's visibility, just constant visibility, being more public facing. And so with that public facing with all those touches
Mhm.
and creating relationships on and offline, it's really basic. A lot of what a lot of people do is really basic. When you do the right things consistently, you tend to get good results.
Mm.
And being in front of people multiple ways, saying the right people tend to step forward. People self-select.
Right.
Not interesting, they step back. If they're interested, they step forward. And those are the folks we're looking for.
Right. Kind of self-qualification.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. You're talking about the goal is exposure. Is there a way you track exposure? Is there a metric you go
Uh,
after? Is it a revenue target you can see as a lagging indicator? How do you track that growth?
I don't. It's revenue is a byproduct of doing the right things. So you can say $1 million, right? You can say that's the goal for the year. That's not how I operate. I don't think that's a good idea because at any point you could do things for the sake of that $1 million growth at the end of 12 months. If your goal is long-term sustainable, building a brand, building a business, and there's nothing wrong with like stepping on the gas, making $1 million selling the company.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. But that's not what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to grow a sustainable business,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so with that comes those relationships, with that comes those touch points, right? And so it's a process, it's process driven that then gets the performance out of it. It's not
Right.
high level performance at the cost of all process, because at some point you create a shitstorm if you do that.
Right. It's true. It's true.
Right? And then you're like, but what we made $1 million last year. Now what? You got lucky.
Yeah.
Everything came together. And some people can get lucky multiple times, but it's been proven time and time again. You do the right things consistently, you tend to get a really good outcome.
A lot of people compare business to sports of any kind, where
That's right.
say you're a golfer, you got to do the right swing thousands of times to be able to do it consistently. You,
Yeah,
you might have a crazy swing and get some good hits, but you're not going to be able to do it all the time.
that's right. Yeah. You look at any good golfer and you're like, oh my goodness, 300, 500, whatever the yards are these days, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
such a good hit. Because how many hours did he practice swinging that club
Mm.
for that distance? A lot.
Yeah. An unheard of amount, right? Not something none of us have ever done, or else we'd be on that level.
That's right. And that's a process thing. And it's a commitment thing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Coming over talking about strategies and practicing, if you will. You mentioned earlier AI, things like that. One thing that I am curious about with you is how do you see your industry evolving over the coming years, especially with AI and things like that? And how are you positioning yourself to be in front of that curve?
Yeah, so there's really two aspects. One is creating work with AI, and it's either a production tool or a process tool, right? Productivity tool. We prefer to
Right.
use it as a productivity tool. When you and maybe someday we'll be there, but at this point, writing copy with AI, there's this fingerprint. Folks
Right.
produce hundreds of thousands of pages. You see this on LinkedIn. I produced 400, I just saw this the other day, 400,000 pages on Google. Man, my site was killing it. And then it drops like a rock. You can bully the algorithm for some period of time, but at some point there's a correction, right? So let's use AI as a productivity tool for the output. It's not the output tool itself. It's not a production
Right.
tool from that perspective.
Right.
And I think the more people I tell my clients this, I'm like, when people ask, how'd you get the results? Tell them AI. telling me you did all of it with AI. Let them go do it with it. Because here's what's going to happen. There's going to be so much glossy garbage out there, the vanilla glossy garbage, that when someone shows up with the real thing, you can't ignore it. It's a thing that you've been looking for this entire time. It's just been buried by the glossy garbage. If you have
Right.
something to say, please go say it. If you don't use AI as a proxy tool, we have
Right.
enough of it out there. Unless you're one of my competitors, in which case go use it as much as you
I
want.
was gonna say a lot of people talk about how AI is gonna be good for it's like you talked about bullying the algorithm, right? It'll be good for a little bit and then everything just becomes the same. Takes away the authenticity.
That's right. So
So
how do we get here with content specifically? Like back in the day, it was like go find who's ranking for what querying in the top 10 links on Google. And if you were a good site, if you had a lot of domain expertise, you could then create a better version of that by going, okay, they talk about these things, I'll make it better and I'll put 20% on top. Now we have tools. The evolution was tools that would come back and say, build a page based on the 10 pages. And you would do that. Then IA came out and says, I'm going to go scrape those results, spin them all up, and keep on doing that. And so AI continues to go back and do that. So it's almost like if you were to get like a concentrated glass of orange juice and just keep on dripping water in it, just
mhm,
overflows. At some point, there's going to be no orange in there. There's going to be a slight taste of orange, but it's going to look a whole lot like water. And that's
right.
potentially where we're going with these tools. So something has to be done on that side. In terms of how does it show up in Google or ChatGPT, or if you choose the search engine, choose the AI engine. Those tools, and any tool is getting the AI tools. They're getting it from one of two places, as far as I can tell these days. One is going to Google and scraping, aka so your
Right.
SEO really matters,
Yeah.
or direct feeds, which is basically how a search engine has worked in the past,
Right.
in some respect.
That's what I
Right?
was just gonna say. If your SEO is good, it's still gonna get scraped into AI anyway. If I'm
I've
a business owner and I say I need to increase my SEO, who should I go to? Pops, Optics, and LLC. If like you've built
That's right.
that visibility. Yeah.
I've seen, and I'm happy to be corrected by it, by people who said, no, this is the real thing. I have never seen anything that says, here's how you rank in these engines, in these AI engines, that is not good SEO. There's nothing that says, and here's how you rank in ChatGPT, and here's how you rank in what Gemini, whatever. Haven't seen anything that makes any sense. That goes back to I woke up out of bed today. AI is a conversation. I decided to be an SEO AI loudmouth on LinkedIn. That's what
Right.
they are.
Yeah. Yeah. And interesting enough, right? You're talking about AI, you're talking about growing things like that. I wanted to jump over into like our lightning round, right? And the first question of this is, what's one tool or resource that's been game changing for your business?
One tool or resource. RASI has been the game-changing tool. RASI is, I mentioned earlier, it's the responsibility matrix. Who's doing what? How do you do it? How do you make it visible? That work
Hmm.
visible. There's you can slap together SOWs, you can slap together work, you can get content produced, you can, whatever your business is, you can do the things. But unless you have a system to really hunker down into, to have controls around what you're doing and
Hmm.
do it thoughtfully and effectively, efficiently, a lot of it's efficiency when you're running a little
Right.
business. Making good decisions, and when it's not a good decision, pivoting to the next best decision and being okay with that. I was really confident with this decision yesterday. Now I'm not. I'm making a new decision. But having that framework, even as a small company, is super, super helpful.
And it's interesting you talk about that, right? The ability to be flexible, right? A lot of business owners talk about flexibility and pliability, right? Being able to make those changes when you need to. So that's huge. The second question here on this lightning round. What's the best piece of advice you've received about scaling a business?
Best piece of it. Yeah. So it would go back to, I'm not sure if it's advice. It would be an author. I think his name is Ben Hardy. Let me see if that's true. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm terrible remembering these things. I apologize. Benjamin Hardy. Yeah, Benjamin Hardy has a bunch of great books. So he and a co-author wrote 10Xing your company. 10X is easier than 2X. That's a great one, which is about, I mentioned earlier, about really hunkering down into what's moving the company and then bringing everything else off of your plate onto someone else's, right? So you do that 100 times, you're building a really good model for yourself.
Right.
right?
Right.
There's the they he also produced Gap and the Gain, right? So a lot of folks are
Oh, I
like,
love that book.
yeah,
That
right. I
book
was
is yeah.
the author, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really the same book, right?
Right.
It's just broken down into three different books. It's the same thing, but the basic premise is measure yourself based on where you were yesterday, not based on that ideal that you set in the future. Because if you set
Right.
if you're always measuring against that ideal, that horizon, it's always moving. But if
And for anyone who hasn't read the book, the concept is you're in the same place regardless. What you measure against is what kind of puts the perspective in, but you're going to be in the same place, whether you're comparing against yesterday or tomorrow.
That's right. And so if you so regard yeah, your position changes, but if you're
Right.
comparing yourself to that horizon, again,
Correct. Correct.
you're a miserable person. You never feel like you're getting ahead. Everything is pointless. But if you measure it to the gap, or I'm sorry, the gain, the rear view mirror, the results you've gotten from doing the work, then you can go, oh, I was a 1 and now I'm a 10. But if you're always comparing it to the 100, the 100's really far away. It's a
Right.
big number to get to. How do those people get to the 100? They did the work over years. They
Right.
decided to do it. They decided to have discipline. They decided to hunker down and get the work
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you'll notice anyone who's in business knows this. When you talk to someone who's really successful, they're still not happy where they're at. I don't think I've ever met somebody who has the motivation to start and run a business that says, yeah, I'm good to sit here and not do anything else. Right. There's inherently that drive.
That is a dangerous perspective, right? Like you're either actively moving forward or you're
Uh-huh.
not.
Yes.
And if you're not, then by default, you're moving backwards.
And that's where I think that's where the gap in the game comes in, right? Is if you can look at it and say, I'm not where I want to be, but I'm way better than I was. That's the premise of the book,
That's
right?
it.
But
Yeah.
yeah, cool. All right, last question for you here, Nick, and this is for you to leave your mark on the listeners. What advice would you give to founders who are just starting their journey?
For founders who are just starting their journey, it's not an easy thing that you've decided to do. And it's not for everyone. So if you're gonna jump in, go do it. Go see if this is the right thing for you. And it's 100% cliche, but you know what? There's a lot of things I've learned along the way the past 5 years. And one of the biggest things you get to learn is really your relationship with yourself, how you show up, how you respond to things, how you react to things, which is different than responding to things. But go do it. Go do it. I highly encourage everyone to have the experience and to go do what they want to create. Go create something. There's a lot of folks who are not creating things and who are just sitting on their laurels like you were talking about. So go do it. Really.
I love that. I love it. I think that's a great place for us to end this. Nick, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. Great insights. Really good to have you. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Chet.
Cool. And that wraps up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. Again, I want to thank Nick for sharing his incredible journey and insights with us. To our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. You can also find more resources and insights at closers.io, where we're dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their sales and marketing efforts through world-class systems and playbooks. Until then, keep climbing, and we'll see you on the next one.